Thought Bubble Audio.
Look, up in the sky!
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Welcome to Beer with Geeks with Tim and Frank.
Who are you?
I'm Batman.
I am Iron Man.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Hi, Christopher. I'm Nero.
My name is Inigo Montoya.
You're a wizard, Harry.
A couple of guys with a couple of beers and a whole lot of pop culture nostalgia.
Make it so, number one.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
I named the dog Indiana.
Life finds a way.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Now sit back and crack open a cold one, because it's time for Beer with Geeks.
It comes in paints.
Shaken, not stirred.
Great Scott!
I was way off. I knew it started with an S, though.
Hi, and welcome to Beer with Geeks, where two geeks geek out with beer. I'm Tim, and with me, as always, is my man who likes Brian Austin Green. It's Frank. How are you today?
That's not fair. That's a visual joke.
Oh,
Hey, how's it going, bud?
it's going well. How about you?
I'm good. For those listening and not watching, which is all of you, I'm wearing my Live with Brian Austin Green t-shirt from last year's live podcast.
Wow. I was actually wondering why, because I couldn't connect the dots for a second, and so I was like, "Why do you have a T-shirt with Brian Austin Green's name on it?" And then I remembered the podcast, and then I rolled with it, and here we are, Frank, at the beginning of this episode.
And here we are.
But Frank, I said to you, you're always with me, but today we actually have a special guest.
That's right.
Today we are joined by David Sorafine. David, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
You're welcome. Now, David is my cousin-in-law. I guess that is a thing as far as rules go, in accordance with. Yeah, that's like the real. Is that a real thing? Because I mean, it's really what it is. If I have a mother-in-law, technically, I have a cousin-in-law.
Yeah,
Makes sense to me.
Exactly what we are.
That's great. Well, that's cool. So
Above that.
and yes, yeah. I'm sorry, we're only here because we're family.
That's
so
it.
Awkward. Yeah. David, tell us a bit about yourself. What you do, where you come from, why you're here, all that good stuff.
I am originally from Rhode Island, but I reside in Los Angeles, where it's currently 95 degrees. I am a director of photography, and I run a small production company, which consumes my life, and I love what I do. And then after we spoke about your podcast, I was like, oh, it'd be cool to jump in and talk about TV and movies and fun stuff like that.
That's great. That's exactly right. Because I mean, like Frank and I talk about movies and stuff all the time, and then you were like, hey, like I'd love to come on and be like someone who actually works in film. This
Right.
is someone who has a production company. This is cool. Someone who's held a camera.
I hold many cameras.
You hold many cameras.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's cool. That's cool. Well, because of COVID, I'm sure you've been stuck inside just like the rest of us. And so today we're going to continue our now traditional what you've been doing in quarantine. And so, but before that, Frank, I saw that you were drinking a beer.
I
am.
am.
So could you tell me what beer you were drinking?
I am. I'm drinking a new one, at least new to me. This is a Prince Percy Pilsner from the Maine Beer Company of Freeport, Maine. Maine Beer Company, it has a great reputation here in New England. I don't think there's a ton of distribution. I think they go as far at least as New York. I know that you can get it in New York, but on the East Coast, they're somewhat well known for really, really good IPAs. And this is a Pilsner, which I'd never had from them before. They're really known for their IPAs. You can only get this at the brewery.
Oh,
so
you're being an elitist beer drinker.
Sure. Yeah.
Aren't you, Frank?
They have curbside pickup right now of an exclusive case you can get of all the beers that normally only have available at the brewery if you want to get them to go. And I was not planning on going there anytime soon, but I was in Maine, in another part of Maine last week, and our car broke down on the way home. And so we had to, and it was kind of late in the day, so we had to spend the night while we waited for our car to get looked at. So we got a hotel, and the hotel was right down the street from the brewery. So on the way home, I said I got to stop there and pick something up at the curbside. So I managed to snag a few of these rare bottles, and it's a really good Pilsner. They make great IPAs, but this is a hell of a Pilsner too. So
It's almost worth your car breaking down.
almost,
Almost.
not quite, but almost. I was very lucky when that happened, though, that we were able to, call my brother-in-law who lived in the area, and he was able to pick us up. And especially lucky that, and this is the most Maine thing ever, that my wife's meme, her grandmother, opened up the barn and let us borrow the pickup truck that they normally use for hunting and towing the boat and all that fun stuff. We were able to borrow that for a few days while we're waiting for our car to be ready. So, most Maine thing ever.
Of you. That is so Maine of you. What happened to you? You're from New York.
I know, right?
Yeah.
You currently live in Maine?
I live in Massachusetts, but we were visiting. We were visiting my wife's family up in Maine, and all that happened. So yeah, wild turn of events.
Indeed. David, are you drinking something? Do you have a water or a beer or
water? I'm hydrating currently.
That's good. Well, 95 in the middle of
you're gonna need that.
Yeah. Water, good choice. Yeah.
And I have errands to do, so I have to be somewhat responsible today.
It's good. Look at that. See, this is good. This is drinking responsibly or not drinking at all.
Working, not working. So always like to keep a level head.
That's right. That makes sense. I'm done working for the day, apart from this. So I am drinking a Shebeen Brewing Company Smoothie Shop Milkshake IPA.
What?
Yeah. It is it's an India Pale Ale with vanilla bean, and I wished it was better than it was.
Oh no, really?
My honest review. It sounds so good.
It does.
But I almost wish that I had the foresight to get a couple of scoops of vanilla ice cream or something like that and throw them on top of and throw them inside the glass to do so, or to mix them together to make a real milkshake.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty good, but when you're I want a milkshake, this ain't gonna cut it.
A beer float.
A beer, yeah, I wish I made a beer float. Exactly. But that's okay. But still try it. I mean, try that. Do what I just said. Do that for real.
Yeah, exactly.
Get back to me. Well, Frank, a while ago, I think back in March, we had said what have we been watching, what have we been reading, all that stuff in quarantine, and it's been a while. We were haha, what will we be watching for 3 weeks?
Yeah. Remember when we thought it was going to be 2 weeks, then we go back to normal?
Yeah, right.
I thought it was going to be a month. I honestly got 50 days, and we'll be not normal, but at least safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And now it's the before times and the now time. That's nonsense. So I'm sure that each of you maybe have caught up on some things that you've been delayed on. So let's start with our special guest, David. What have you been up to?
A ton of Netflix, Hulu, and other shows. Some really guilty pleasures on Bravo that my girlfriend wants to watch. But my all-time favorite that I wanted to binge alone was a German show on Netflix that the third season was just released in June, and it coincided with the dates in the show to create this big event that was happening. So the show is called Dark. I don't know if either of you have seen it.
Yes, I've seen.
Actually, a very, very good friend of ours, Andrew, who's been on the show a couple of times, Tolkien TV Talk with me, he has told us to watch this multiple times. He'd watch episodes. He's like, guys, you actually have to watch this.
Yeah.
It's the best show on time travel I think that's ever been done. The cinematography is beautiful. Every scene is pretty meaningful. You'll learn to care about every single character, and it's not one of those shows. Everyone when they watch Netflix, they'll break out their phone and they'll just be like, "Oh, I'm watching a show," but there'll be visuals that you need to see that you might not hear anything on the screen, but there's stuff happening that you need to see this, and it's just a little snippet, small shot, a quick shot, but it means so much. So the show is just it takes you on this journey through time and dimensions, and I don't want to say anything more than that, other than you'll definitely watch it and love it. It's only about 30 episodes, so it's easily bingeable, and I highly recommend it. The only hurdle is it's dubbed, so you have to get used to that. But they do a really good job. That would be my all-time favorite, I think, show that I watched during quarantine, and show in general. I mean, the thing is, it's got the most rewatchable qualities because you can rewatch it and then go through the eyes of each character and try and put stuff together. The subreddit on Dark is incredible. What people have put together. I don't know how much. I guess they have time now because of quarantine, but the amount of information and Excel sheets and maps and documents that fans have put together is just, I don't know if you guys watched Lost in the back in the day. It's similar to that in with the fan base, creating all these theories and connections and all that, but it takes that to a whole new level.
I'm kind of picturing what like Doc explaining to Marty like 1985 and 1985A, but just like a way blown out version of that, like on Google Docs and like in the subreddit.
Oh yeah, because there's picture like 20 sets of Doc and Marty. There's, I would say, maybe 15 characters in Dark, probably more, and then you'll get ultimately 3 different variations of each character told throughout the story. So you get like the younger version of the character, the present day, and then a futuristic version of the character. So it's so much fun. So I mean, 15 times 3, you're looking at like 45 different characters.
Gotcha.
That you just know who they are and what their attributes are and what they're capable of. So it's just a beautifully written show. I don't know how their heads didn't explode trying to write this show cohesively, and then to shoot it and have the continuity match and not miss a beat. It's nuts how precise they are with everything. And the ending, I think people, I'm sure you guys have shows that you're just disappointed in the ending, where you're on this journey for so long and you're like, oh man, this ending better deliver. I think it's up there with one of the better endings of a series where you're satisfied with the ending. Were you guys satisfied with the Lost ending?
No.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah, no.
I think that was the prevailing opinion, wasn't it?
Yeah,
like,
I don't think I was like angry at it, but I also wasn't. It felt like a none of it actually then mattered kind of ending, and I don't like when everything's a dream or they're already dead, or I'm like, that's fine. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So, but Dark is done, so it's just those 3 seasons, and like that's it, and it's over.
Done. Creators are moving on to a different show, but yeah, it would be insane if they somehow made it another season. But the story ended. I mean, they could write a spin-off, but it doesn't seem like it was written to be like that.
Gotcha.
So you said 30 episodes. Are those half hours, hours?
They are hour longs.
Nice.
They're all like in the 50 to 60 minute range.
Gotcha.
With some, I think the finale was a little over an hour.
Sure.
But yeah, highly recommend. It's quality viewing.
Right on. Just for everyone listening along, I'm going to put links to everything we talk about today in the show notes. So there's a Netflix link to Dark in the show notes if you want to check that out, if it sounds like your cup of tea.
It was perfect. Frank, tell us about your cup of tea. What have you been watching?
So, on a similar note, similar yet very different. On the time travel note, I watched Palm Springs on Netflix.
Ooh.
Oh yeah.
Also, I guess I'm giving away that it's a time travel movie. I'm going to try not to give away anything else if I can. It's being marketed as a rom-com, which it certainly has that aspect to it, but it stars Andy Samberg and Kristen Milioti, who people may know as the mother from How I Met Your Mother. Speaking of shows that wasted the ending,
yeah,
they are fantastic together. The movie is funny. It's sweet. It's thought provoking. It's smart. It's only 90 minutes too. So if you have Hulu, it's only 90 minutes and it packs a lot of story into 90 minutes. It does the it's not really time travel, more of a time loop.
It shares some qualities. I won't give anything away. But
Okay.
yeah. And mainly with the use of a cave.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I like that. It's great. It's one of it's one of the smartest comedies, smartest like written comedies I've watched in a long time. I found it really, really endearing and funny. And you know, I used to not be an Andy Samberg guy like at all. Like when he was on SNL, it wasn't really my thing. Didn't really care for his sort of his whole deal. But I've really come around on him, in particular with Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I'm a big fan of that show now, and so I decided to try the movie out when it hit Netflix. I guess it was at Sundance, and it was going to be a theatrical release before the pandemic, but then Hulu picked it up, and so it's a Hulu direct to Hulu exclusive now, and I can't say enough good things about it. I really don't want to give away sort of how it plays out, other than if you like that sort of time loopy, let's say like Groundhog Day,
like Groundhog Day time loopy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is I think a lot of people knew that, like, oh hey, it's a Groundhog Day movie, and for it still to exceed expectations that's amazing, because when you hear that, it's like, oh man, it's gonna be one of these. Like Groundhog Day did it the best. Russian Doll, not to cut you off.
Oh yeah,
similar, another Groundhog Day show, also done very well. Could rewatch that a whole bunch of times.
Yeah. That's yeah, right. Similar. That's another one with a similar concept to it. Palm Springs is interesting because you say Groundhog Day, and that's the best shorthand for it, but it's a different. There are a lot of things that make it a different spin. The point of view character is a little bit different than the Bill Murray character in Groundhog Day. There's a number of things like that where they sort of take Groundhog Day and sort of turn it on its head, so to speak. So I really, really enjoy it. I think it's hilarious. It's really smart. I would say, if you're like I used to be and you don't care for Andy Samberg, I would say give it like 20 minutes. And if you're not into it, then tap out. But like give it 20 or 30 minutes, because I really do think it's worth your time. It's really, really excellent. So I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah. J.K. Simmons.
Oh yeah, so now I'm on board. See, because like before I was like, yeah, it sounds good, I'll watch it. But see, now that J.K. Simmons is in it, I'm like, oh, let me just.
He kind of steals. So
yeah,
it's true.
Yeah, I didn't even realize he was going to be in it until he showed up for the first time, and then I was delighted.
How happy when he shows up? You're like, oh my god.
Yeah, exactly. I was delighted.
Amazing.
It's true. Anytime J.K. Simmons like magically appears in something, I feel like if I was like, oh, I'm going to give this a B-, I'm like, well, now it's a B, just because J.K. Simmons is
just
in it.
Gets that half point bump just for him being there.
That happened when one of the things, I can't remember if this was on last episode or not, but my wife was really into Avatar: The Last Airbender, and so we watched that, and then we watched Korra after that, and J.K. Simmons is one of the voices in that, and I didn't know that when I started the show, and so I'm listening, I'm like, that's J.K. Simmons. And so every episode I was like, is he coming back? Is J.K. Simmons coming back? Like, and he's in all 3 seasons, and I was like, yeah, J.K. Simmons, let's just keep this going. It's what's keeping me going watching the show.
Nice.
J.K. Simmons, yeah. Well, very good. I will I'm going to add that to my list too. What you guys should watch, since we're kind of going, this is not necessarily time travel or time loops, but it could be a little bit mystical and dimensiony that way, and I'll leave it at that. Is I binged the first 2 seasons of Castle Rock on Hulu, because I wanted to read a bunch of the Castle Rock Stephen King stories before I went and watched the show, so I could get all the Easter eggs, and now I'm just like, whatever, I'm just going to watch the stupid show because I have time now. Do either of you watch it?
I do not. I haven't seen
No,
it.
I understand Mark
it.
Bernardin wrote for it.
Yeah, he wrote for the first season, which was good. I didn't love it. It was okay. It was slow. It was mysterious, and I guess, and the acting was good, and it takes place kind of around Shawshank Prison. So like the warden, actually John Locke from Lost is the warden of Shawshank, and he is keeping this guy Bill Skarsgård in like the very bottom of the prison in a cage, and like and you don't know who he is or what he's about or anything like that. So it's a mystery of why the warden would keep somebody so far down who doesn't know who they are, and then what's happening in the town because of that, blah blah blah. I'd say the first season's fine. The second season was incredible, and they're not really connected, so you could actually skip the first season and jump right to the second season and be fine.
Oh, interesting.
But what you need to watch her for is Lizzie Kaplan.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, she's a national treasure. She plays Annie Wilkes, so Kathy Bates from Misery, and it's like before the time of Misery, and it's about her like hopping around from state to state with her daughter, because she basically steals lithium to treat her bipolar by working as a nurse, and then they get stuck in Castle Rock, and she has to make it all work. But then there's like crazy like vampire-esque like Roanoke type things happening at the same time, and it was wild. It was so good, and I can't like all the other things. I can't really say anything without completely giving everything away. But if you're looking for quality acting with an intriguing plot line, I'll give you that.
All right.
And I don't think you really. It mentions some stuff from season one, but it's a completely new cast with a completely new set of characters with different motivations. It just happens to take place in the same town. And it is not necessary to have read a single word of Stephen King to enjoy the show.
I gotta say, that's one of the things that sort of intimidates me about a lot of Stephen King adaptations and Stephen King properties is like, how much do I need to know about the sort of like shared universe that's not a shared universe, that's totally a shared universe, that sort of is the umbrella over all of the Stephen King's. Like, how much do I need to know to really enjoy it? And like, that's always a thing that I think about. And with a show that goes on for multiple seasons, I obviously assume I need to watch, season 1, season 2, all the way through to follow. So to hear that I could start at season 2 with very little knowledge of anything, that happens in season 1, and without needing to read a lot of Stephen King, that's a good sell for me.
Yeah, well, I think there are some things like part of season 2 takes place in Jerusalem's Lot, which is the main setting of Salem's Lot, the story. And you could be like, oh, that, like, you can either know that or not know it at all or nothing. It doesn't make any mention to the events of the book. It just like happens to take place there. So you can enjoy the fact it takes place there without really needing to know anything else.
Gotcha. So like, if you know, it adds something to the story, but if you don't know, you're not missing crucial information.
That's right. It's almost like watching a Marvel movie, if that makes sense. Where you can watch Ant-Man on its own and he can fight the Falcon or whatever, but if you've never seen an Avengers movie up until then, context kind of tells you everything that you need to know.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like that, but to a much less extent, because most of the story, they just kind of take place in the same town. They don't really mention that. A lot of times it's not really till like 20 years into his writing that he really starts to mention different characters together. Like the kids from It are in 11/22/63.
Oh.
But they're only in like a scene, and the main character just happens to ask them a question about the town that they're in. So if you don't know who they are, they're just a bunch of kids.
They're just kids.
They're just kids. But if you've read the story, you know who they are. And you're like,
sure.
Oh, that's what they've been up to after they killed an alien clown from outer space. Cool.
To go back to your Marvel movie analogy, it's like if they mention Quinjets, you're like, oh boy, Quinjets. But if you don't know, you're like, okay, that's some sort of vehicle. Okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah,
like,
I know what a jet is.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
exactly. Like you just you gloss over it. But if you know, you're like, oh, Quinjets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's exactly like that. I think you can watch the first Avengers movie without seeing all of Phase 1 and be like, I got it.
Yeah,
They're doing a thing.
Yeah.
So I do recommend that, but mostly for Lizzie Kaplan because she was just. Oh, and Tim Robbins was actually in the second season too. I thought it was going to be like stunt casting. I was like, oh, Tim Robbins in the first episode, and I'm like, Tim Robbins, episode 10,
sticking around.
This is great. Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, so that was really good, and we're running out of time, so I'm just going to ask you. I'm going to ask you, fine gentlemen, did either of you watch Lovecraft Country? That is on HBO, the new show.
I have not.
It's new and it's coming out. It definitely will still be going as this episode comes out. So I recommend. It's very good.
Solid.
Yeah, it's very good. It's about the group of people that run the Safe Negro Travel Guide. It's basically the Green Book. It's like their version of the Green Book. And there's like this mystery with H.P. Lovecraft stuff and other creatures, but it's all tied in with racism and blah 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 and Jim Crow and all this stuff, like Trek Across America and like pulp stuff and John Carter and Tarzan and like all of this other wild stuff. It's cool.
So is this like Watchmen but for Lovecraft?
I would say that is as close. You mean like
HBO's Watchmen, but for Lovecraft.
Solid. Yeah, I would say it's pretty close to that. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. That's different. A little bit of a different tone.
Sure.
It definitely, it takes place in the 50s.
Okay.
So you also get the cool cars and like the good the cool cars. I don't know what else.
The cool cars.
The cool cars. I don't know. So yeah, I just watched the first episode pretty much right before we recorded. It's what made me think of it. And you guys were talking about things of modern relevance, and mine came out in 2019. So the before time. So I needed to mention things. I needed to mention something of 2020. Something good is happening in 2020. It was the first episode of a new show. Dude.
There you go. Go.
That's good. Any quick fire, rapid fire, anything else you've been enjoying really fast? David.
Guilty pleasure. Bosch is best cop show on TV. Watch Bosch. Love it.
Last thing I'll mention is I've been watching Brave New World on Peacock.
Oh yeah.
That is one of my favorite top 3 novels. Easily. And the adaptation is quite different in a lot of ways, but I'm really enjoying it nonetheless. It took me a minute. It took me a couple episodes to sort of wrap my mind around where they were going and how they were telling the story in a slightly different order and where they were making changes and whatnot. But we are 2 episodes away from the end, and I'm very much on board with the changes they've made. They've modified it for the 21st century. And it's really good. It's really, really solid. We're both really enjoying it. I have read the book several times, and Marissa has no exposure to it, and we're both enjoying it a lot. So there you go.
Fun.
Okay. And I guess my last guilty pleasure, my wife and I have been watching Boy Meets World.
Nice.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we're like, oh, I just don't want to think about anything that's happening. So I'll watch Mr. Feeny tell me something inspirational. All right, here we go. But what we've learned, Mr. Feeny is kind of a dick in the second season. He goes from I'm tough but fair and I've got pearls of wisdom, and then he's just kind of like a tool bag in the second season. But they right his wrongs by the third season. So that's where we are now. So
cool.
It's been fun. Yeah, it's been fun. Well, David, thank you so much for joining us. This was super fun. Appreciate you coming on. If you want to plug anything, where people can find you, if they want to see your stuff, anything like that.
Instagram, there's all you need. You'll see our website. You'll see all the fun photos from our adventures, and give us a follow.
All right, that's cool. And Frank, tell us where we can find Beer with Geeks in all places.
Yeah, you can find us at beerwithgeeks.com. You can find us at thoughtbubbleaudio.com. That's our network. That's where you'll find this show and all of our shows. You'll find us on Twitter at Beer with Geeks. You can email us at beerwithgeeks@gmail.com. You can find us on any podcast app, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google, anywhere you'll find podcasts, you'll find this one. And please, if you do, make sure to subscribe and to rate and review us in all those places. I was listening to an Apple has an Apple News podcast now, and even they say the best way to help us is to subscribe and to review us. So even for Apple themselves, ratings and reviews make a big deal. So please do that. And if you can, and if you'd like to, you can head on over to patreon.com/thoughtbubbleaudio. And for as little as $1 a month, you can support this show and the whole network on an ongoing basis. Help us keep the lights on. Help us hit all the costs that we have to produce these shows. But thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you all soon. David, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right. Well, until next time.
Cheers.